He didn't walk into that shelter searching for a miracle. He walked in trying to outrun ghosts from a war that never left his mind. In the farthest cage, where hope usually dies, a tiny German shepherd sat shaking, ribs showing beneath rough fur, eyes dull with the kind of sadness only the abandoned understand. People passed him without a second glance. No tail wag, no bark, no spark, just silence. But then the soldier stopped. He crouched down, voice barely more than a breath. "Hey, little warrior." And in that fragile moment, the trembling pup lifted one paw, a small, desperate plea. Not for food, not for rescue, for trust, for someone to stay. Neither of them knew it yet, but that single touch was about to awaken a legacy and a miracle born not from battle, but from grace. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. A thin veil of winter fog clung to the pines as dusk spread across Redwood Basin. Cold air moved like a quiet ghost through the remote mountain town of Redwood Basin, Montana, a place where secrets preferred the company of snow and silence. Cole Mercer eased his worn truck along the gravel road, tires crunching as the first flakes of night began to fall. He had always loved winter once, back before war taught him that cold could live inside a man long after the battlefield had emptied. Cole was 38, tall and broad-shouldered, with the hardened build of a soldier who had never fully left the fight behind. His hair was dark and trimmed close, streaked faintly with early silver at the temples, and a short, scruffy beard sharpened the angular lines of his face. There was something stern and carved in his jaw, like stone-shaped not by nature but by conflict. The jagged scar at his right brow gave his deep-set hazel eyes a permanent expression of quiet vigilance. People often said he seemed like someone who listened to every sound, even the ones no one else heard. They weren't wrong. Years in the U.S. Army Special Forces had trained him to read danger in breaths, shadows, heartbeats. Years after leaving, his soul still listened for explosions that would never come. He had lived alone in a modest timber cabin on the northern ridge since he walked away from the uniform. Some soldiers came home but never arrived. Cole was one of them. After losing his closest teammate, a man named Logan Hale, in a dust-filled ambush on a nameless road overseas, Cole's heart locked itself behind steel gates. Logan's voice haunted his memory, laughing, swearing, promising beers they never shared. When guilt moves in, it doesn't pay rent, it stays. Tonight, Cole wasn't heading anywhere planned. He drove because the cabin felt too quiet, the fire too warm for a heart that couldn't thaw. On instinct rather than intention, he turned toward the small Redwood County Animal Shelter, an aging brick building with a flickering porch light and the tired aura of a place where hope always seemed to be leaving just before it arrived. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and damp concrete. A heater hummed weakly in a corner, doing its best against the cold. Rows of kennels lined the dim hallway, each holding a dog with eyes pleading for warmth, a touch, a future. Cole wasn't here to adopt. He didn't even know why he was here, maybe because loneliness recognizes itself in others. "Evening," came a soft voice. The shelter attendant, Martha Carter, stepped from behind a counter. Martha was in her late 50s, petite and round-cheeked, with silver hair tied into a neat bun and warm walnut eyes touched by 1,000 kindnesses. Her hands were calloused from years of cleaning cages and comforting abandoned animals, and her knitted plum sweater made her look like someone who would bake apple pies and braid a child's hair if she had ever had one of her own. "You here to look around?" she asked gently. Cole nodded once. "Just passing through." Martha smiled knowingly, the kind of smile someone gives when they recognize hollow echoes in another person. "Sometimes we don't choose the souls we meet," she said softly. "Sometimes they choose us." She didn't follow him down the hallway. She didn't need to. Kennels erupted with hopeful barks as Cole walked by. Tails wagged against steel, paws scraped floors, eager, hungry hearts begging to be seen. But Cole halted only when he reached the very last run in the shadowed corner. There, curled so tightly he looked like he wished to disappear, was a young German shepherd pup, thin, trembling, with fur patchy and dull like winter grass after frost. His ears drooped rather than stood, and his eyes were pools of sorrow too deep for a creature so small. They were a warm amber, glassy with tears that had dried in uneven streaks on his dusty muzzle. A handwritten card on the kennel read, "Echo, Approx. 4 months. Extremely fearful. Slow trust. Be gentle. Echo. The name felt fragile, like something you whispered in a church. Cole knelt slowly, settling on one knee. He didn't reach out. Soldiers learn early never to rush a wounded being. He simply breathed, slow, steady, grounding himself in stillness. The pup flinched at first, ears folding tighter, but after long, patient seconds, Echo lifted his head. Those desperate eyes flickered with the faintest thread of recognition, pain recognizing pain, loneliness bowing to loneliness. Cole whispered, voice rough from disuse, "Hey there, little warrior." The pup blinked, breathing fast, ribs visible through a too-thin coat. For a moment it seemed he might tuck back into himself and vanish forever. Then, hesitantly, almost apologetically, Echo stretched out one trembling paw through the bars. He didn't lick, didn't bark, didn't wag. He just reached. A silent plea. A fragile question. Cole swallowed, throat thickening. He raised his hand and gently touched the soft paw. A spark, tiny but real. The wall inside him cracked the smallest degree. Martha watched from the end of the hall, hands lifting to her heart. "He hasn't come to anyone in a week," she whispered, as if afraid to disturb the moment. "Someone dumped him by the quarry. He was hiding under broken boards, wouldn't let anyone near at first. Dogs know hurt the way soldiers do." Cole didn't answer. Words felt too heavy and too small at the same time. Instead, he stood, eyes never leaving Echo's. "I'll take him." Martha blinked. "You sure?" "No," Cole admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." Minutes later, he carried Echo out in a worn blue shelter blanket. The dog stiffened in his arms at first, tiny heart hammering like a fragile drum. But halfway to the truck, his rigid muscles loosened, his head sinking slowly against Cole's chest as though surrendering to warmth he hadn't felt in months, maybe ever. Snow drifted in soft, quiet spirals as Cole opened the passenger door. Echo curled into the seat, tucking his tail around himself like a frightened child. Cole drove in silence through the sleeping forest, headlights cutting ribbons in the mist. That night, in the cabin lit only by firelight, Echo took refuge in the corner at first, shaking at every creak of timber and sigh of wind. Cole sat on the couch, boots off, mind echoing with memories he couldn't cage and ghosts he couldn't bury. Time stretched, the fire whispered. Outside, wolves howled in lonely chorus, and then, light as breath, tiny paws padded across the wooden floorboards. Echo hesitated by Cole's side, then lay down against his leg. A soft, exhausted sigh slipped from him. Cole rested his hand on the pup's back, feeling the warmth seep into the cold places inside him. Two beings, both carried by fate through fire and ruin, now breathing the same slow hope. Neither knew healing yet, but they had begun. And far beyond the window, in the storm's soft dark, something unseen stirred, an echo of a past neither could escape. Cole didn't know it then, but someone was already looking for the pup he had just taken home. Someone who would soon knock on his quiet cabin door. The war, it seemed, had not fully let him go. Not yet. Soft rain pattered against the roof, a thin gray curtain drifting past the tall pines surrounding Cole Mercer's cabin. Morning light seeped through the windows like a shy visitor, pale gold against the rough-grain wood walls. Inside, warmth from the iron stove mingled with the scent of pine soap and damp fur. Echo sat trembling in the old clawfoot tub, patches of wet fur plastered to his small frame. He looked even smaller soaked, ribs faint beneath delicate skin stretched over a body that had carried too much fear for too long. Cole knelt beside him, sleeves rolled, forearms marked with faded scars, every movement gentle and unhurried. His hands, built for combat and survival, now held a cloth with tenderness that surprised even him. "Easy, buddy," he murmured, voice softened like snow settling on branches. Echo blinked up with those amber eyes, trusting but wary, tail tucked yet unmoving, a soldier bracing for blows that never came. As Cole rinsed the pup's neck, his fingers stilled, his brow tightened. Beneath Echo's damp fur, barely visible and circular, lay faint scars. Not the ragged type left by random injury. Disciplined, evenly spaced pressure marks, embedded in the flesh like ghostly collars. Cole had seen marks like that before. Military canine training harnesses, pressure-based collars not issued to civilians. A cold ripple slid into his stomach. Battlefields came back in fragments. Drills, leashes, dogs with instinct sharper than steel, every one of them with a story written in muscle and pain. Echo shivered, sensing the shift. Cole took a slow breath, forcing his voice steady. "Who did this to you?" No anger in his tone, just sorrow, heavy and low. After drying Echo with a frayed towel, Cole bundled him in a blanket and secured him in the truck's passenger seat. Rain streaked across the windshield as they drove down winding roads toward Briar Lake Veterinary Clinic, a small brick building outside the forest line. The sign out front, chipped at the edges, swayed gently in the breeze. Inside, the clinic smelled of antiseptic and cedar shavings. A mural of cartoon animals brightened walls otherwise worn by years of late-night emergencies. Behind the reception desk sat Dr. Lauren Miller, a veterinarian in her early 40s, with gentle olive skin and dark hair cut in a sharp bob that framed intelligent, empathetic eyes. She wore steel-rimmed glasses and a faded forest green scrub top, the sleeves rolled to reveal thin wrists dusted with freckles. Her voice carried warmth and calm, the kind of tone that had soothed countless injured creatures. "And who's this brave fellow?" she asked, crouching low so Echo wouldn't feel loomed over. Echo pressed back against Cole's boot, trembling. Cole rested a reassuring palm on the pup's back. "His name's Echo. Just adopted him." Lauren's expression softened, someone who had seen heartbreak in kennels and still believed in repair. "Let's scan him, okay? See if there's a chip." Her scanner beeped as she passed it gently over Echo's scruff. A number flashed on the screen, K9A17. Lauren's brows drew together. "That's odd. This isn't a civilian registry code." Cole's shoulders tightened. "Military? Possibly, or federal program." She paused, then spoke quietly, as though sharing a fragile truth. "Some of those dogs, they go through more than we can imagine. Training, stress, missions, loss." Cole's heart beat once, hard. He knew that language. He had lived it. They left the clinic in silence, rain easing as they returned home. By evening, Echo lay curled by the fire, twitching in uneasy sleep. Cole sat nearby in his cracked leather armchair, staring into flames. Memories burned in the orange glow. Dust storms, gunfire, Logan Hale's final shout, the guilt still clinging like ash on bone. His phone buzzed suddenly on the table. An unknown number. He answered, voice instinctively calm. "Mercer?" A male voice spoke, professional yet burdened. "Mr. Cole Mercer, this is Daniel Rourke from the National Canine Recovery Program." Daniel sounded mid-50s, seasoned, with a gravelly depth like someone who had smoked too many war-zone cigarettes and carried too many funerals inside his ribs. "Your dog, designation K9 and A17, was part of an early-phase imprinting litter. Mother, Nova, K9 combat dog. Nova died protecting her handler during a raid near Denver. The pup disappeared. We assumed he didn't survive." Silence settled like frost. Cole's throat tightened. He glanced at Echo sleeping by the fire, chest rising in soft, fragile breaths. Daniel continued quietly. "If that dog's with you, he's already been through hell, and he'll need patience to unlearn survival." Cole spoke softly. "I know what that looks like." "I imagine you do," Daniel replied. His tone had respect in it now. Soldier recognizing soldier. "If you want support, outreach, advice, call us." Then he hung up. Cole stared at Echo. Tiny, scared, but alive. A legacy of courage and sacrifice, a child of a fallen warrior. He moved from the chair to sit cross-legged beside the dog. The flames painted his face in gold and shadow. Tentatively, carefully, he stroked the pup's head. "You don't owe the world anything," he whispered. "You survived. That's enough." The words spilled like confession, not to Echo, but to himself. Echo shifted, then rolled slightly and pressed his small body against Cole's thigh. A soft whine. A fragile trust. Cole felt something crack inside, releasing warmth he had forgotten existed. Later that night, he found a tennis ball in a drawer, faded, used, remnants from life before silence. He rolled it gently across the cabin floor. Echo watched it, unsure, ears flat. Cole didn't push. He waited. Minutes ticked by. Finally, Echo stood, walked, hesitant but brave, nudged the ball forward with his nose, then looked back as if seeking approval. Cole chuckled, a rare, honest laugh that sounded rusty but real. "Good boy," he said. Echo's tail lifted halfway, unsure but hopeful, and Cole's heart lifted with it. Rain faded, stars pressed faintly through cloud gaps, and inside the cabin, laughter, quiet and cautious, yet bright, filled the space war once occupied. Healing was slow, but it had begun. Echo dozed off beside him again, this time closer, trusting. Cole leaned his head back, eyes closing, peace creeping quietly into fractured places. For the first time in years, sleep found him without a fight. But far away, a file reopened, and a name flickered in a system not meant for curious eyes. Someone else now knew Echo lived, and they wanted to know where. A curl of winter mist drifted lazily across the slope as dawn breathed pale blue light over the pines of Iron Ridge. The world was quiet in that fragile hour when morning hadn't fully claimed the land, and yesterday's shadows still lingered like thoughts that refused to quiet. Inside the cabin, Cole Mercer stirred awake, the faint hum of embers in the wood stove, and the soft rise and fall rhythm of Echo's breathing, grounding him in safety. Echo, now healthier and sturdier than the frightened scrap of fur he once was, slept curled near the foot of the couch, head resting on Cole's boot as though guarding him. Cole's expression that morning was unusually peaceful until a firm knock cut through the quiet. He rose, shoulders rolling instinctively into an alert posture honed by years of war. When he pulled the cabin door open, cold mountain air rushed in along with the presence of a stranger. A woman stood outside, tall and straight-backed in a dark field jacket, slate-gray scarf around her neck. Her black hair was tied into a low bun, streaked with silver, that gave her a certain commanding gravity. Her jawline was sharp, her nose narrow, her eyes a steely green that scanned everything as if calculating risk in microseconds. She looked mid-40s, fit, someone accustomed to being the calmest person in a crisis. She extended a badge before she spoke. "Agent Dana Reynolds, Federal Canine Recovery and Tactical Support Division." Her voice was steady, professional, with a firm warmth buried behind formality, like someone who'd spent most of her life leading missions, losing people, and learning to speak only when she had something worth saying. Cole studied her a beat before stepping aside. "Come in." She entered without hesitation. Echo rose immediately, ears alert, posture tense, protective yet cautious. Dana's gaze softened just slightly as she regarded the pup. "He's grown stronger. Good." Cole's brow lifted. "So you knew where he was?" "We suspected," she replied, removing her gloves with precise movements. "Daniel Rourke contacted me, and once a case file like Echo's stirs, it doesn't stay quiet." Cole offered no hospitality, no coffee, no chair. War taught a man to conserve warmth until he knew where trust belonged. Dana didn't seem to mind. She stepped closer to Echo, kneeling to let him smell her palm, movements slow and controlled. Echo sniffed, uncertain, then retreated behind Cole's leg. Dana stood again, nodding slightly, as if confirming internal observations. "He remembers training stimuli," she said, "and he recognizes chain of command energy, even if he doesn't understand it yet." Her gaze cut to Cole. "He's not a normal dog, Mr. Mercer. Echo was bred and conditioned for elite tactical capability before he could walk." Cole crossed his arms. His voice, low and even. He was a child. He didn't ask for that world. Dana's face didn't change, but her eyes tightened faintly. "None of us chose ours, either." For the first time, Cole saw the soldier beneath the agent. He recognized the stillness of someone who had been shaped by duty, by missions that left scars, and by grief that didn't fully heal. She finally got to the point. "The program wants him back. Observation phase, evaluation. If he retains capability, training." Cole's jaw flexed. "You're asking me to send a traumatized pup back into the only world that hurt him?" Dana's voice softened, just enough to prove she wasn't made of steel alone. I'm asking because dogs like him were born into service. It's who he was meant to be. Cole's response was quiet, but unshakable. So was I. Doesn't mean it was right. A long beat of silence stretched. Dana looked at him not like an agent then, but like a fellow veteran. If you refuse now, I'll close the door. But know this, he will always have instincts you can't erase, and someday he may face a moment that demands the soldier in him. She placed a slim contact card on the table. If something changes, call. Then she turned and left with the efficient certainty of someone who did not expect gratitude or hatred, only inevitability. After she disappeared into the trees, Cole stayed still for a long moment, feeling a tremor inside his chest that wasn't fear but recognition. He crouched, rubbing Echo's head slowly. They don't get to decide who you become. That night, sleep did not come easily. When it finally did, it brought war with it. Cole dreamed of dust storms turning the air brown, boots pounding desert ground, the roar of gunfire splitting silence. He saw Nova, a strong, dark-coated shepherd, tearing through smoke to shield a bleeding soldier. He saw Logan Hale, grinning before bullets carved the world apart. He heard a final shout, his name, and the silence afterward, louder than war ever was. Cole woke with breath caught in his chest, Echo whining softly at his side, licking his wrist like a tiny medic stitching a wound without knowing how. The next morning, instead of letting Echo's life move toward uniforms, commands, and steel obedience, Cole chose a different mission. "We're going to learn peace," he murmured as he clipped the leash. They headed onto the forest trail called Devil's Spur, a rugged slope lined with spruce and wild sage. Training was simple. Patience, awareness, calm responses, not attack commands, trust commands. Echo practiced sitting quietly as deer crossed the ridge, waiting before running down hills, breathing in time with Cole at rest points. The mountain wasn't a battlefield. Today, it was a sanctuary. Halfway along the ridge, Echo suddenly darted forward with mischievous speed, snatching one of Cole's tactical gloves from his belt and sprinting across the clearing. Cole blinked, then shook his head with an incredulous huff. Echo pranced in a circle proudly, tail wagging high for soon. The first time, a small soldier discovering joy. Cole leaned on one knee, extending a treat. "Trade you." Echo deliberated, then patted over, dropping the glove in exchange for the snack, ears perked, chest swelling like he'd just won a war. Cole laughed, honestly laughed. The sound startled a nearby crow and even caused Echo to freeze, confused, tail halfway between wag and question. "Yeah," Cole said, ruffling the pup's ears, voice low and warm. "Guess we're both relearning things." The wind rose, sweeping pine needles across the path like quiet applause. And for that moment, the world belonged only to a healing soldier and a pup discovering what it meant to be free of orders and shadows. But as the sun dipped behind Iron Ridge, a black SUV crawled slowly along the distant dirt road, pausing when it reached the fork leading toward Cole's property. The engine idled. Someone inside watched. Then, without turning in, the vehicle eased away. Peace had begun, but eyes from the past had not looked away just yet. Late afternoon sunlight spilled over Maplewood Crossing, Utah, honey warm and gentle, as if the world had earned a quiet moment after a long winter. Market day buzzed with low laughter, fruit stands, canvas tents, and the mixed scents of roasted corn and sweet apple cider drifting through the air. Cole Mercer walked among the crowd, Echo at his side on a loose leash, tail lightly swaying, nose twitching at new smells. The pup had grown stronger, coat thicker, confidence slowly blooming but never careless. He stayed close, still a child learning the outline of safety. Cole wore a dark flannel shirt rolled to his forearms, boots worn smooth at the heel, scars catching glimmers of sun whenever he reached for something. He looked like a man trying to learn how to belong among people again, but keeping distance, as if the world might still ask him to fight. He paused at a stall where a woman in her 30s arranged jars of honey. Clara Whitmore, petite with fine wheat-blonde hair in a braid and a scattering of freckles across fair cheeks, offered a shy smile. She had kind hazel eyes, the sort that seemed always on the verge of watering, not from sadness but softness. She spoke with quiet ease, but her fingers trembled slightly when she handed Cole a jar, betraying a nervousness likely born from a past that asked her to make herself small. Local hives, she said gently, voice feather soft, made with mountain wildflower pollen. Helps with allergies. Cole nodded, offered a polite smile. Echo sniffed a basket of beeswax candles before looking up for approval. Clara laughed, a light, startled sound like someone rediscovering joy. They never finished the conversation. Echo froze. His ears pricked sharply forward, tail stiff, posture changing in an instant. Cole's instinct kicked too, that quiet tension soldiers never lose. "Echo," he whispered. The dog didn't look back. Then, one powerful yank and Echo tore free, sprinting like a bullet through the crowd. Cole dropped his honey jar without noticing it shatter. "Echo!" he barked, already running. Panic flashed across shoppers' faces as Echo darted between them. Cole pushed through bodies, leaping a crate, heart slamming into old familiar rhythm, adrenaline blooming in his bloodstream like a memory he didn't want but knew intimately. A thin column of smoke curled above a row of parked cars. Faint at first, then thicker, darkening. A sedan's windshield shimmered with heat. Inside, flames licked hungrily across the dashboard. A child's cries pierced the chaos, shrill, raw, terrified. People stood frozen, helpless, phones raised instead of hands. Cole's voice turned sharp command. "Back up!" Years of battlefield leadership returned instantly. He yanked off his jacket, wrapped it around his arm, smashed the back window with a solid blow. The glass fractured like ice. Smoke burst out, choking and harsh. Inside, a little boy, maybe 6, small. Frame, tear-streaked cheeks, hair stuck to his forehead, pounded the window weakly. Echo leaped through the broken glass before Cole could stop him, paws landing on burning upholstery with fearless urgency. Cole swore under his breath but didn't hesitate. He forced his upper body inside, reaching. The boy gasped, coughing, eyes rolling fear-wide. "I've got you," Cole rasped, hands steady even as heat threatened to blister skin. Echo latched gently onto the boy's coat sleeve, tugging, not panicked, not wild, but careful, controlled, like a dog trained for life-and-death extractions. Together they pulled. Flames roared, hungry, a breath away from swallowing everything. One final yank, and the boy burst free. Cole stumbled backwards with the child in his arms, just as a rush of fire erupted through the front cabin. He shielded the boy with his body. Echo landed beside them, coughing tiny sharp coughs, fur singed at the tips, nose blackened with soot. Sirens wailed in the distance. A woman screamed, racing forward. The boy's mother, tall, dark hair loose and wild, eyes red with terror. Cole placed the child into her arms, and only after she hugged him did Cole exhale. Echo pressed his head to Cole's shin, trembling but proud, chest rising in shallow bursts. The crowd erupted in gasps, cheers, disbelief. Phones recorded. Someone whispered, "That's the same dog from the shelter Facebook post." Another murmured, "That soldier, he just ran right in." But Cole wasn't listening. He knelt, one knee to pavement, hands on Echo's face, voice thick. "Good boy, you're safe. I've got you." Echo licked his wrist, a quick, shaky gesture, and set his chin on Cole's knee. That night, the cabin lights glowed warm. Echo lay on a blanket near the fire, still recovering, paws twitching from leftover fear or leftover bravery. Sometimes they looked the same. A knock came. Soft this time. Cole opened the door and found Lieutenant Avery Brooks standing there. Avery looked late 50s, tall though age bent his back a fraction, gray hair neat but wind-tousled, weathered face etched with the kind of lines people earn through duty, not time. A cane supported his right side, an old wound clearly military. His eyes, blue and deep, carried grief, and a pride so fragile it threatened to shatter him. No greeting passed. The silence was loaded, sacred. Echo slowly approached, tail low but wagging once, a single respectful wave. Avery lowered himself to one knee with visible effort. When Echo rested his head against Avery's palm, Avery's throat tightened. "Nova's boy," he whispered, voice frayed, breaking. His other hand hovered in hesitation, then stroked Echo gently, reverently. "She gave everything, and you carry her courage." Dana Reynolds had been right. Some instincts never disappear. But Cole's voice broke the stillness, firm, protective. "He saved someone today. That's enough service for any lifetime." Avery met his eyes. Something unspoken passed. Understanding, gratitude, a shared oath between soldiers who knew freedom was sometimes the greatest honor you could give a warrior. Later, a call buzzed from the K-9 division, voices crisp, formal. After his actions today, we request his cooperation one final time. He belongs in service. Cole answered steady and unwavering. He served today, and tomorrow he'll chase butterflies if he wants. He's done. Then he hung up. Echo lifted his head, sleepy, eyes shining amber under firelight. Cole scratched behind his ear. You chose life today, he murmured, not war. Outside, snow began falling again, soft flakes drifting, silent applause for a battle won not with violence, but with mercy and fire. And in the quiet after courage, one truth settled deep. Some heroes are born in chaos. Others are born twice, once in flames, once in love. Spring arrived like a gentle promise in Harbor Point, Maine, brushing the rocky coastline with sunlit salt spray and the cry of distant gulls. The long winter had finally loosened its hold, and new warmth threaded the air, melting the last of the cold from bones and hearts. On the town's grassy marina square, beneath fluttering flags and strings of white pennant lights, people gathered, neighbors, fishermen in thick sweaters, school children in bright jackets, and older veterans wearing faded service caps that told stories all on their own. They had come not out of obligation, but admiration. A single podium faced them, simple and unadorned, and beside it, a modest wooden stand held a blue velvet ribbon attached to a brass medallion etched with the words, Hero of Hope. Cole Mercer stood tall among them, though his posture was not the rigid pride of a soldier on parade. It was quieter, softer, the posture of a man learning to stand in the sunlight again. His once hardened eyes warmed as he scanned the crowd. His flannel had been replaced by a crisp gray shirt tucked into clean dark jeans, sleeves rolled, showing forearms lined with faint scars that told truths no speech ever could. His beard was trimmed neatly, jaw sharp but no longer clenched like a drawn blade. And beside him, tail swaying gently, chest held proud yet humble, sat Echo, coat glossy in the afternoon light, amber eyes soft and alert, ears forward but body relaxed like a creature who had finally found the shape of belonging. Near the front row stood Mayor Jeremiah Hartley, a stocky man in his early 60s with a neatly trimmed silver beard and deep smile lines carved into suntanned cheeks. His plaid blazer and polished brown shoes battled the sea breeze bravely. Mayor Hartley had the steady gaze of someone who had seen too many small-town tragedies and still believed tomorrow deserved bright banners. Clearing his throat, his voice boomed warm across the crowd. Today, we honor courage not compelled by duty, but born from pure instinct and love. The applause was soft at first, then grew, rolling like ocean waves hitting shore. Echo glanced around, slightly startled by the sound, but Cole knelt and squeezed the fur behind his ears, a grounding gesture, tender, practiced. Echo leaned into the touch, tail thumping lightly. Next to the podium stood Sergeant Elena Foster, a local police officer in her early 30s, tall and broad-shouldered with dark skin and a strong, athletic build. Her hair was braided neatly and pinned beneath her cap, and a subtle scar traced her cheekbone, a reminder of a knife confrontation early in her career. She spoke rarely unless necessary, known for her calm presence and intimidating stare when facing troublemakers. But today, her stern face softened as she glanced at Echo. She had been the first responder that day at the fire scene and had witnessed Cole and Echo's bravery. When she shook Cole's hand now, her voice came out low, sincere. "That kid's going to grow up because of you two," she said, "and I don't say this much, but thank you." Cole nodded once, emotion flickering behind his calm. He would have done the same if I hadn't been there. He rested a palm on Echo's head. "I'm just the tall guy who broke glass." Elena smirked, rare, and returned to her place. Cole stepped to the podium. The wind shifted, bringing the tang of ocean brine and distant gull cries. He didn't unfold the paper in his pocket. Words written felt wrong when the heart already knew what to say. "I thought I was saving Echo," Cole began, voice low and steady. "But the truth is, Echo saved me. There are battles that never make the news, the ones fought inside your own chest. He reminded me that not every fight needs a weapon. Some need patience, trust, love." People grew still, Fishermen removed caps, children leaned closer, veterans nodded slowly, understanding lines forming deep between their brows. Cole continued. War taught me to survive. Echo taught me to live. A hush fell, broken only by quiet sighs and rustling jackets. Cole did not cry, but the ocean glimmer in his eyes said he could have. He stepped away, lifting the ribbon and fastening it gently around Echo's neck. The medallion glimmered against soft fur. Echo looked up at Cole, ears twitching as if to ask, "Did I do good?" Cole scratched under his chin. "Yeah, you did good." Later, after hands were shaken and backs clapped, Cole received an envelope. Simple tan with no return address. Inside lay a photograph and a handwritten note. The photo showed Nova, Echo's mother, sitting tall beside Lieutenant Avery Brooks on a sunlit training field. Nova's coat gleamed, her gaze fierce and devoted. Avery's grin, younger, healthier, brimmed with pride. The note read in steady script, "Thank you for giving her boy a life of peace. You didn't just save a dog, you kept a legacy alive." Avery Cole pressed the photo to his chest a moment before placing it carefully in his jacket. That evening, the sky burned gold, then cooled to violet. Back at the cabin, the ocean murmured outside like a steady heartbeat. Echo lay beside the old fireplace, head resting gently atop Cole's old combat boots. Boots that once carried him through sand and smoke, now nothing but relics of a life survived. Cole sat nearby, warm light wrapping him like safety. He whispered, barely above a breath, "You were born from darkness, but you chose light." Echo shifted, sleepy, and rested one paw across Cole's boot as if anchoring him to peace. No gunfire, no orders, no missions. Just quiet. Just belonging. Just a soldier and a once-broken pup, whole again in each other's company. Proof that some heroes do not wear badges or carry rifles. Some heroes simply love and choose to stay. And in that soft glow, spring opening like a slow dawn outside the window, Cole finally let himself believe that peace was not something he had to earn through pain. Sometimes, peace was simply given when you finally stopped running. In the end, some miracles do not roar like thunder or arrive with angels in shining armor. Sometimes, they come quietly, on four paws with wounded hearts learning to beat again. Echo was not just a dog, he was a reminder that God still places small miracles in our path when we need them most, even when we are too broken to notice at first. We do not always recognize His blessings the moment they enter our lives. Often they whisper instead of shout. They look like second chances, forgiveness, gentle mornings, and silent companionship that heals wounds no one else can see. In everyday life, you may be surrounded by noise, fear, or tired battles, but never forget, God still works in soft, humble ways. The world can scar you, but God sends comfort in unexpected forms, sometimes in the shape of loyalty and unconditional love. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who may need hope today. Comment your thoughts below and let us know where you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story of faith, courage, and redemption. May God bless you, protect your home, and fill your days with small miracles just like Echo, reminders that light always returns and love is never wasted.